I never believed my daughters would ever walk, until an amazing caregiver changes everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch into my bones. I stared helplessly at the hospital room. The scent of antiseptic filled my lungs, heavy and stifling. My heart ached with a weight I couldn't shake. My twin daughters lay in those white beds, fragile, small. Machines beeped rhythmically. It felt like the world around me faded, leaving only their soft breaths and my own sharp gasps. Hope was something I had buried deep. Year after year, endless appointments and endless nights spent crying. They were my little girls, trapped in bodies that wouldn't obey them. Every time I caught a glimpse of their tiny unsteady legs, a rush of despair washed over me. I could almost see them glitching, like static on an old TV. Would they ever run through a field, hair blowing in the wind, laughter echoing? Yet, that day, something changed. Enter Anna, a caregiver whose eyes sparkled with something I couldn't quite grasp. An energy. A glimmer of hope. When she walked into the room, life seemed to pulse with a strange intensity. She wore bright colors, her laughter lilting like a melody. I watched her crouch down to their level, her hands guiding them like the gentle push of a breeze. I couldn't comprehend the electricity that crackled in the air as she worked her magic. "You can do this," she whispered with unwavering conviction. It was maddening, this belief she carried. I felt a twitch of skepticism mixed with a splinter of hope. My jaw clenched. I wanted to shout that she was naive, that we had been down this road before. But there was something in the way she moved and spoke that kept my mouth shut. Day after day, I watched the transformation unfold, like a flower blooming against all odds. The twins began to respond, their fragile limbs twitching and stretching. I held my breath, my heart racing as Anna encouraged them like a sorceress weaving spells. The way they looked at her, wide-eyed and trusting, ignited something within me, a long-buried hope that maybe, just maybe, they could walk. But hope is a precarious thing. With every ounce of joy, shadows loomed. I saw the doubts on the faces of the doctors, felt them seep into my bones. What if this was a mirage? What if this hope crumpled again, leaving us deeper in darkness? The stakes heightened, and every step became an anticipation of eventual heartbreak. Then came that fateful afternoon. The air crackled with an unspoken energy. I stood by the window, the sun seeping through the curtains, golden rays illuminating Anna and my girls. My heart pounded as if it could escape my chest. They were trying again. I felt a lump in my throat as I watched Anna, her eyes burning with a fierce determination, guiding my sweet girls to their feet. That my breath hitched. Time slowed. My daughters wobbled on the edge of freedom, teetering between falling and flying. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. Would they take that first step? I closed my eyes, praying silently. The world around me fell into a trance. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed. I gasped, all eyes darting towards the door. An unexpected figure burst in, and my heart dropped. The expression on their face, a blend of caution and urgency, sent chills down my spine. What had gone wrong? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure standing in the door frame wasn't just an intruder, it was Dr. Harris, the head surgeon. His presence cut through the fragile veil of hope that had begun to cocoon us. "We need to talk," he said, his voice steady yet strained. The urgency in his tone clawed at my insides, twisting my stomach around helplessly. Anna halted, her hands dropping to her sides as she slowly turned to face him. The girls, still unsteady on their feet, faltered at the sudden disruption. I could see it in their eyes, the confusion and fear of losing the precious moment they were grasping yet not quite understanding. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice trembling as I stepped forward, an instinctive protective gesture. My heart raced, pounding a frantic rhythm, drowning out the soft beeping of the machines. What news could be so urgent? Thoughts crowded my mind, battles I fought daily, worst-case scenarios, and recollections of nights spent worrying about everything and nothing. "We have new test results," Dr. Harris said, swallowing hard. There was a heaviness in the air, a sense of prescience that something was about to unfold that could change everything once again. His gaze flickered to the twins and then back to me, studying my reaction as though measuring which way the fragile balance would tip next. "There might be complications. I need you to understand this, but no, this couldn't be happening." I heard a soft whimper behind me, and my heart plummeted. I glanced back at my daughters, their wide eyes filled with uncertainty, grappling with the sudden shift in atmosphere. "It's okay," I urged, forcing a smile which felt more like a mask, subtracting from my mounting hysteria. "It's just some paperwork, right?" Anna stepped forward, her voice soothing. "Girls, remember what we talked about? You're doing amazing things today. Let us not lose that feeling." Her warmth radiated a sense of calm even amidst the storm. I felt a little of the hopelessness begin to lift, just for a moment, but the dread in my gut held fast. Dr. Harris cleared his throat, attempting to regain composure. "It's about their progress. It's commendable, truly," but he hesitated. "You need to temper expectations. The ambitious strides we usually see at this stage don't always translate into long-term success." "Long-term success?" I echoed incredulously. "What does that mean?" My words came out sharper than intended, the fear spilling out as anger. "Are you saying they might never walk? That all of this, every miracle we're witnessing, could just be fleeting?" "Of course not, but I want you to be prepared. Sometimes, these breakthroughs can plateau," he said, a note of caution threading his voice. "There are risks involved with intensified therapy. We must tread carefully." It felt as if the ground beneath me had opened up. I swayed on the edge of despair, struggling to find footing in the chaos of emotions flooding over me. Thoughts raced through my mind, each one heavier than the last. What right did I have to hope if the foundation was cracking? Maria and Lila turned their gaze to me, seeking answers as confusion etched their faces. Anna knelt beside them, whispering encouraging words, promising the power of persistence. I adored her for her kindness, even as my heart shattered with every word spoken above them. "Please, we can't give up," I felt myself plead, reverberating like a cry into the void. "They've come this far. I believe this can work." Anna squeezed my shoulder, a warmth radiating through the icy grip of fear. "And no matter what the doctor says, they are learning to trust their bodies, and that means everything. They're strong, and we'll help them through this." Just then, Maria let out an enthusiastic giggle, almost as if she was locked in her world, blissfully unaware of the gravity of the conversation. "I want to walk, Mommy," she exclaimed, unguarded and hopeful. A wave of emotion crashed over me, washing away a sliver of the despair. "Me too," Lila added, her tiny fist clenched in determination. I looked at their cherubic faces, brimming with innocent belief, and for the first time, I caught a glimpse of the courage that might be needed, not just by them but by me too. Hope felt fragile and bold all at once, but as I stood there teetering between light and shadow, I caught Dr. Harris stealing glances at the exit. His urgency unsettled me further. What lay ahead? "Wait, can we make a plan?" I urged, trying to reclaim some control. "There has to be something we can do. We can't just let this chance slip away." His shoulders sagged with a mix of sympathy and regret. I'm sorry, but the hospital is conducting an early-stage approach to the upcoming trials. It could mean a total shift in therapy protocols. Until then, we have no data to indicate how to proceed. It felt like each word was a stone, heavier and more disheartening. As confusion reigned inside me, another crash echoed from the direction of the main hallway, this time accompanied by muffled voices and hurried footsteps. A woman's voice broke through the chaos, vibrant yet frantic. "You have to come see this. It's incredible." For a fleeting moment, curiosity piqued in my heart. What if it really was a sign? What if it changed everything again? "Go," Anna whispered, her eyes sparkling with encouragement even as worry pooled in her glance. "I'll stay with them. We'll be right here." I wanted to fight against the current of uncertainty, but that instinct to follow the unknown flickered in my chest. Before I could allow my fear to anchor me, I nodded and rushed toward the doorway, leaving everything behind: a torrent of feelings, the weight of the unknown, and my beautiful daughters who could yet redefine the limits of hope. Would it lead to something that might lift us beyond despair, or would this new revelation shatter our already fragile world? As I pushed through the doorway, reality twisted. I felt the tenuous thread of fate slipping through my fingers, and for the first time, I was terrified of what awaited on the other side. As I moved through the sterile corridor, my heart thumped in sync with the footsteps of hurried medical staff rushing in every direction. Each pressed face told a silent story of urgency and powerlessness, and I fought against the swell of anxiety rising from deep within. Every hurried whisper I couldn't quite catch felt like accumulating puzzle pieces I couldn't decipher. The weight of possibility draped thickly over my shoulders. The woman's voice had echoed down the hall, leading me to a utility room overflowing with supplies. She was there, a tall figure draped in scrubs, her posture radiating both confidence and concern. "I'm so glad you came," she said, her face breaking into a relieved smile. "I'm Rebecca, one of the new occupational therapists. You need to see this." I eyed her warily, the knot in my stomach tightening again as I followed her down a separate corridor. "What is going on? Is it about my daughters?" I asked, the tremor in my voice making my question more of a frantic plea than a genuine inquiry. Yes. Just trust me." Her excitement pulled me closer. "We've been experimenting with an innovative assistive device. It's still in testing, but, well, I think it could help." I felt a rush of hope mixed with skepticism. "Testing?" I echoed, a wary edge creeping into my tone. "What do you mean?" Rebecca led me to a bright room sparsely furnished, where colorful mats lay against white walls adorned with artwork created by young patients. My eyes scanned the room, landing on a petite contraption, a frame standing upright, equipped with soft harnesses and wheels. "This is a prototype designed to support children as they learn to walk. It encourages movement and balance while reducing risk." I inhaled sharply, the weight of her words hitting me like a tidal wave. "And my girls, they could use it?" "Of course. Today is a demonstration day. We want to see how they respond to it. It's all experimental, but their progress would provide immensely valuable insights." Her sincerity, shielded with optimism, coaxed at the tender thread of hope buried within me. But what if it doesn't work? What if I felt a rush of panic, rooted deeply in past disappointments? Rebecca reached out, placing a gentle hand on my arm, anchoring me. "What if it does?" she countered, her voice laced with warmth. "This is about giving them opportunities. It won't negate their hard work, but it could expand their horizons. It's worth a try, don't you think?" I nodded slowly, my heart traveling uncharted waters. What if it was the spark we needed? Would I feel empowered to challenge the limits of what I thought possible for my daughters, or would this lead to another layer of heartbreak? As I stood there, rooted in uncertainty, I felt wildfire ignite in my chest. "Let us get the girls," I said, my voice now steady with newfound resolve. I hurried back to the room where Anna was sitting alongside the twins, sweet words flowing effortlessly from her lips like a lullaby. Their faces lit with warmth, casting away the clouds of worry, and a piece of my heart stitched itself back together. "Okay, girls," I announced, my voice ringing with a hopeful urgency as they turned toward me. "We have an amazing opportunity to try something new today. Are you both ready?" Maria and Lila blinked, excitement instantly replacing their earlier confusion. "What is it?" Maria jumped from her seat, her eyes glowing with anticipation. "Can we walk faster? Can we practice?" "Yes." I laughed, feeling euphoria bubbling within me. "It's all about movement and balance, just like we've been working on. So let us go and show them how strong you are." The journey back to the bright room felt short but significant, each step filled with excitement and dread in equal measure. The faint sounds of laughter and encouragement spilled into the hallway, mingling with the sounds of beeping machines and hurried footsteps, yet amidst it all, I found a single thread of hope spiraling upwards. When we entered the therapy room, Rebecca greeted us with an enthusiastic smile, illuminating the space with her positivity. "Girls, are you ready to try something special?" "Yeah." They chimed in unison, their voices cutting through the tension like a bell ringing clear. I stood back as Rebecca guided Maria to the device, watching her carefully strap her into the supportive harness. "It might feel new and different," she explained, "but it's going to help you take those first big steps." The sight of my daughter standing, albeit with support, was both astounding and terrifying. My heart leaped, and I could hardly contain my anticipation. Rebecca adjusted a few knobs, and then with patient encouragement, she urged Maria to take a step. "Now, just like we practiced, hold your body steady. Feel the support around you." Maria's face morphed from concentration to exhilaration, her small feet moving tentatively, but they moved nonetheless. I felt a weight lift as a flood of emotion rushed through me, witnessing the fire within her. "You're doing it, honey. You're really doing it." And yet a fog settled over my excitement. I felt the fear creeping back in, whispering doubts that this would soon fade like all the other miracles. But at that moment, those fears were replaced by pure magic. Lila watched intently, eyes wide with admiration, and there, stability in her sister's bravery ignited something in her spirit. "Now you go, Lila," she shouted, her pride seeping into her words, a beacon of hope blossoming among us like wildflowers against the grayest of days. The device was designed to babble and cheer each step taken, and soon, we were all swept away in a joyous connection. Then, suddenly, just as I began to feel the tendrils of optimism intertwine with gratitude, the door burst open. A medical team rushed in, and with them came a familiar face, Dr. Harris. His eyebrows knitted together, concern etched deep into his features. Just seeing him sent a ripple of anxiety down my spine. "What is happening here?" he demanded, and for just a moment, the energy in the room dropped. I felt Lila's hand squeeze my own, and I held my breath, waiting for his judgment. "Dr. Harris," Rebecca stepped forward, her composure unwavering. "They're trying the new assistive device. It's all part of the ongoing trial, but we hadn't authorized this yet," he interrupted sharply, glancing at me, a flash of something unreadable passing through his gaze. "You must understand, any shift from the established protocols could compromise." Before he could finish, a gasp escaped my lips, and everything twisted painfully. The light I had clung to for just a moment dimmed in the face of uncertainty. "You can't take this away from them. They deserve the chance," I pleaded, the desperation tearing at my heart anew. Rebecca stood by my side, unyielding, her presence cushioning the fear that drummed in my chest. "They need this support, Dr. Harris. The data we gather today could change everything." But his attention was already shifting, and just as my courage began to wane, to settle in a dark corner of gut-wrenching despair, he fixed his gaze on Maria and Lila. His next words lay unclaimed in the shadow of my own doubts, each syllable weighing heavier than before. "They can't continue like this, not without the risk involved. There are dangers I can't ignore." And just like that, I stood frozen, my heart racing but my thoughts scattering like fallen leaves in the wind. What did he know that we didn't? What darkness did he hold that loomed above our fragile strides towards hope? As the room pulsed with unspoken tension, the air hummed with unanswered questions and looming battles, and I sensed our fragile thread of hope dangling precariously over an abyss. Would we lose this chance? Would we lose each other? The horizon of possibility felt impossibly far away, and every breath I took was weighted with the uncertainty of a future that could change everything once again. The glimmer of hope I had felt moments before seemed to extinguish in the face of uncertainty. Dr. Harris's disapproval hung like a thick fog, heavy and stifling. I couldn't shake the feeling that the very essence of our aspirations hung in the balance. The vibrant colors of the therapy room dulled as I watched Lila and Maria, their faces switching from joyous anticipation to an unsettling clarity absorbing the tension between the adults like sponges. "Dr. Harris," I began, my voice quaking just slightly in defiance. "You can't snuff out our opportunity because of fear. They've already faced so much. Isn't it our job to give them every chance to succeed?" Rebecca rested a reassuring hand on my shoulder, her warmth pushing me to be stronger. The momentary pause stirred courage within me. "You saw how she moved. That means something." I gestured toward my daughters who now stood still, their eyes darting between us, confusion wrinkling their brows. They deserve this chance just as much as any other child. How can we deny them the opportunity to try? Something flickered in Dr. Harris's expression. Perhaps it was the memories of his own past encounters that twisted his frown. Maybe he saw himself in those vulnerable girls, wanting to protect them from the harsh realities that this world often imposed. But he remained silent, his eyes narrowed, weighing every like a set of scales that tipped with opposing forces. "It's not about denying them," he murmured after a long silence. "It's about ensuring we're not trading one set of problems for another. You can imagine the liability." "Liability?" I echoed incredulously. "What about their potential? What about the future you're denying them? Is that not worth the risk?" Just then, Lila stepped forward, her small hand reaching out to grasp the edge of the wheeled frame. I felt my heart lurch as she gently brushed her fingers across its surface, examining the components with a child's wonder. "I'm strong, Daddy. I can try," she piped up, her determination clear, yet straining against the burden of the adult world around her. "Lila," I began, but she shook her head, a flicker of fire igniting within her expressive gaze. "Please, just let me try. Maria can help me too." A mesh of emotions swelled within me, pride for her bravery and fear for what lay ahead. Even in this moment, I could see it, her strength wrapped in vulnerability, fragile yet unwavering. Rebecca nodded encouragingly to Lila. "You're so strong already. That's the spirit. But it's important you feel safe and comfortable hanging on to this, okay?" Finally, it was Dr. Harris's turn to process what was happening, and I could sense the gears of his mind turning. I hoped he would give in to the sheer brightness of childhood, the light of their unlimited potential that shone brighter than his clinical wisdom could dim. "I'll allow you to proceed with caution," he finally said, but I felt his hesitation an obstacle lurking behind his practiced assurance. "But I will be present. I need to ensure safety protocols are followed to the letter." "Thank you," I exclaimed, my relief bursting forth like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Is he going to bully us again?" Maria whispered, her tiny voice cutting through my moment of relief. "No, sweetie, he's just being careful," I assured, though my heart sank beneath the weight of her words. "You're strong, both of you. Remember, this isn't about him, it's about you." At his subtle nod of approval, Lila began to settle into the frame, and I held my breath as Maria clambered in next to her, trying to mirror the effort. All of us were huddled around as if encircling a flickering flame, delicately balancing on a precipice of hope and fear. With Rebecca's steady voice guiding them, I watched as they tentatively shifted their weight, the wheels gliding slightly. Each movement brought synchronicity and a sense of unity, a tiny breakthrough to cling to. The room echoed with laughter and encouragement, coloring the air with moments that momentarily alleviated the shadow of doubt hanging above us. "Now, use those legs," Lila squeaked. With determination, her spirit infectious, urging Maria. I felt my voice catching in my throat, the sheer beauty of this moment blinding me. As Maria began to move, I marveled at the joy enveloping the space, the air thick with possibility and resilience. Yet I felt Dr. Harris's presence like a watchful hawk, his skepticism casting a long shadow. "Stay focused," he reminded. "This is an expensive prototype. Each moment matters here." The laughter faded slightly, the reality of the clinical surroundings encroaching upon the fantastical beauty taking place before us. "Can you feel it?" I whispered to the girls, urgency igniting the air. "Every step you take is not just movement but a shout. A shout that says you are fighting, that you will not be defined by anything else." And as Maria took another careful step, the device encouraging her onward, I prayed for momentum. "This is just the beginning," I murmured to myself, but then another crisis broke the fragile atmosphere. A nurse rushed into the room, her voice rapid with urgency. "Dr. Harris. We need your assistance in room 302. It's critical." Dr. Harris hesitated, torn between the unfolding hope and urgent demands elsewhere. "Just stay focused." He barked at us before he was gone, leaving the charged room steeped in tension once more. Oppressed by uncertainty, I turned back to my daughters, watching them as their excitement mingled with the apprehension I dared not voice. "You've got this," I said, my own belief faltering only slightly, but just as they regained their rhythm, a loud crashing sound reverberated through the hall, a cacophony of chaos that shattered the fragile connection we had begun to weave. I rushed toward the door, my heart racing anew. "What's happening?" My stomach dropped, sensing the urgency beyond the walls of our moment. "Stay here," Rebecca called after me as I opened the door to a maelstrom of activity. I couldn't see clearly, only flashes of movement and anxious faces. I felt that thrumming pulse of fear profound inside me, a premonition of trouble surfacing as shadows loomed all around. "Mom!" Maria's voice called after me, but I had already stepped into the corridor, and there, amidst the turmoil, a revelation struck me like a lightning bolt, shaking the very foundation of the hope I had just clung to. The chaos before me was no mere challenge, there was a deeper struggle lurking beneath the surface. "What now?" I whispered to myself. The corridor's fluorescent lights buzzed above me, casting a cold glare on the events unfolding ahead. I squeezed past a sea of nurses in scrubs and hurried doctors, their urgency palpable, sharp as a knife. The world had always felt distant in those moments, floating outside the bubble I had created around Lila and Maria, but now it intruded harsh, jarring, and unforgiving. "Excuse me. Excuse me," I implored, my voice barely rising above the flurry. Yet, every bystander seemed drowned in their focus, rushing forward with their eyes cast downward. As I turned the corner, the scene eased into focus. A patient was being wheeled in, their body rigid and still, a band of medical staff gathering around like knights before a battlefield. The sight stung, igniting a wave of dread that washed over me. How could any of us be truly okay when encounters like this lurked around every corner? But then, as I drew closer, a familiar figure emerged just beyond the chaos. Waylon, one of the caregivers known for his calm demeanor and compassionate heart. He locked eyes with me, and a strange connection sparked between us amidst the turmoil. His presence was an anchor, a point of stability even as uncertainty reigned. "Dad!" he called, threading his way through the throng. The warmth in his voice was like a balm to my anxious heart. For a brief moment, the swirling emotions quieted, the tumult outside resonating like distant waves. "What's happening?" I asked, urgency breaking with every syllable. "Is someone?" No, he replied, shaking his head. "It's just a stabilization issue, nothing critical." Relief swept through me, though it was tainted by the reality that so many others lived under the constant threat of what could happen at any moment. "We'll take care of it," he assured, his eyes steady, grounding me even further. "Thank you," I breathed out, the words feeling inadequate to express the relief dancing in my chest, but in that moment, the thread connecting me to Lila and Maria became taut, stretched by distance and the instinctual need of a protective father. "I need to get back to them," I murmured, backing away, reluctant but resolute. Waylon nodded understandingly. "I'll be right here if you need anything." As I turned, I felt a flicker of hope dance within me, reminding me that there were supportive souls in this place, waiting to lift us from the depths of despair. Maybe the world outside our bubble could be as bright as I had hoped, a world made lighter by kindness. Returning to the therapy room, I squeezed through once more, and found Rebecca crouched next to the girls, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern as they awaited my return. "What happened?" Lila asked, her little brow furrowed, uncertainty simmering beneath her brave facade. "Just a small issue. They'll fix it quick," I reassured, kneeling before my daughters, feeling their fingers encase my hand with a gentle squeeze of trust. "Focus on your strength, okay?" Maria nodded, but there was a flicker of fear in her eyes, ignited by the echoes of chaos previously experienced. "What if something happens to us?" "No one is going to let anything happen to you, my loves," I said, searching for the strength to convey unwavering confidence despite the quiver in my voice. "You both are so strong. And even if obstacles come, we will always face them together." I felt Rebecca's hand return to my shoulder, drawing me back into the present. "Let us take control of our moment. What's next?" And with that gentle nudge, I watched the girls rally, Lila's determination shining like a beacon as she gripped back onto the wheeled frame, Maria mimicking her movements. Together, they resumed their small steps, each one radiating an energy that seemed to illuminate the room. Joy erupted within the space, laughter mingling with the trepidation that had once gripped us all. "See? You're already showing us how strong you are," I cheered, allowing their resilience to mend the fragile edges of my heart. But just as hope soared, slicing through the fear that lingered, Dr. Harris returned. His face was pale, drawn tight with tension, and I watched as he immediately crossed the room to speak with me. "Can we talk privately?" he asked, his voice low, but I could hear concern laced tightly within. A chill ran through me, and I nodded, drawing slightly away from the girls to follow him into the far corner of the room. My heart thudded unevenly, sensing an incoming storm. "What is it?" "A serious matter has arisen involving the trial." He glanced toward the door as if to ensure the coast was clear. "There are reasons to believe that proceeding might not be safe, and we're facing significant administrative pressure to halt." The floor fell from beneath my feet, and I staggered into a mental whirlwind. "What do you mean halt?" "We've just begun. We can't let them take this away from us. It's not just about your daughters anymore. This involves the hospital's reputation, financial backing." He trailed off, the implications sinking like stones inside my gut. A torrent of emotions swirled within me: anger, betrayal, despair. "So that's it? They care more about money than our kids?" Dr. Harris held my gaze, the weight of his disapproval still evident, yet I sensed a glimmer of understanding beneath his professional demeanor. "I'm advocating for your girls, but it's a complicated situation. I need time. We need conditions to be right." Every instinct within me screamed at him to fight harder, to loathe this system that saw my children as mere statistics. Time? But how much time? I felt my heartbeat quicken, the words spilling from my mouth, desperate. "I can't allow hope to slip again. Not after everything we've fought for." Dr. Harris stepped back, his expression softened momentarily by my passion. "That's why I want to keep this in a positive light. We will take this step by step." But I wasn't reassured. The storm within me brewed, a tempest of rage that threatened recklessly to break free. We can't be at the mercy of a system that doesn't understand what this means for us. His silence lingered, heavy with the realization that the paths ahead were murky, fraught with obstacles that eclipsed our fervent dreams. In that moment, I understood the weight of what was at stake was slowly shifting like a deeply set tide. "I have to go back," I finally stated, heart pounding in my chest. My daughters are out there fighting. Dr. Harris nodded, but the shadows flickered at his brow. The looming fear of what challenges awaited became a tightrope suspended over a vast chasm filled with unrelenting uncertainty. Do what you can, he murmured, turning away, leaving me with a crushing sense of urgency and unsettled dread. As I stepped back into the therapy room, I searched for Lila and Maria, their faces still alight with determination despite the burden of worry that had begun to cloud the air. We're going to keep going, right? I asked, my voice tense but sincere. Always. Lila piped up, her spirit unwavering. Yet, as I watched them lifting each other's spirits, I couldn't help but wonder what new challenges were on the horizon, what sacrifices I would need to make once more. With an ominous wave stirring just beneath the surface, I held on to their hands, each squeeze tethering me to the fragile hope we forged together. The journey awaited, filled with endless unknowns, but I knew I would fight to protect my daughters, no matter what emerged on the horizon. Yet just as I resolved to push forward, I caught an alarming sight over Lila's shoulder. Waylon returning, growth in his expression, though I couldn't decipher if it was joy or a warning in its deepest sense. Dad, he started, pausing as everyone's attention shifted to him, drawing a pin-drop silence. We need to talk. It's important. My heart lurched again, the signs of trouble looming ominously closer. The weight of Waylon's expression seemed to create a tangible tension in the air, a thick fog of uncertainty that enveloped the therapy room. I exchanged incredulous glances with Rebecca, whose brow creased with concern. Lila and Maria blinked up at Waylon, curiosity piqued but shadows of anxiety quickly creeping back into their eyes. Is it about the trial? I rushed to ask, though my heart already knew. He hesitated, glancing around the room as if confirming his words needed to slip through the wind unnoticed. It's about a discovery we made. His brow nodded further. And Lila. There are things we need to address. Lila's little fingers squeezed mine tightly. About me? She asked, her voice as small as a whisper, yet laced with a hint of hope that pierced through the heaviness. Yes, Waylon assured her, kneeling to meet her gaze. You've been so brave, and that courage is what I admire. But I have to tell your dad this immediately. A pit opened in my stomach. Please, just say it, I urged, the silence growing unbearable. I could feel Maria's fingers shaking against mine, and I wanted nothing more than to shield them from whatever storm awaited us. The new trials, they've shown different results than we anticipated for certain patients, particularly those who have faced similar challenges to Lila, he said, the words spilling out with caution. There's a rare therapy technique we can explore. But it comes with its own set of risks. It might be an option for Lila. Risks? My voice cracked, an instinctive tension snapping to life. What kind of risks? What we carried out, anxiety, those things can affect progress. But Lila is strong, and this could significantly help her regain mobility, Waylon continued, unwavering even as I flinched. His gaze was earnest, grounded in a flickering ember of belief that something good could emerge from the shadows of fear. Lila's eyes sparkled with curiosity and the eagerness for another chance. Can we try? Please, Dad? I scrunched my eyes in contemplation, emboldened by her resolve but burdened by the new layer of uncertainty. What if it doesn't work? What if it makes things worse? Waylon's voice dropped to a soothing tone. I'll be there every step of the way. We'll monitor everything closely, and we'll proceed only if we believe it can help. He touched Lila's shoulder, a gesture conveying reassurance, intimacy, and hope. All at once, Maria peered up at me with wide eyes, curiosity entwined with the embers of fear reflecting back from my own heart. Can we really try, Dad? She asked, a plea woven into her words. The parallels between facing their fears and mine became painfully evident. I took a deep breath, the air heavy with uncertainty. What do you think, girls? Can we hold on to this hope together? Lila's face lit up, her determination shining brighter than before. Yes. We can break the cycle, Dad. I glanced toward Rebecca. Her encouraging nod gave me the strength to face this unknown. Then yes, we can try it, I said, feeling the weight on my shoulders shift ever so slightly. But we have to promise to communicate through everything, no hidden scares, just us fighting together. The air, still rife with tension, felt as though it was beginning to crack with hope. Waylon smiled, but the flicker in his gaze remained, betraying an undercurrent of concern that I couldn't shake. Thank you, he said softly, but the gratitude had an edge of worry, hinting that there was more unspoken, a lingering dread simmering beneath the surface. Moments passed, laughter bubbled among the girls, and for a fleeting second, I allowed my heart to embrace a semblance of joy. So many trials, so many hurdles lay ahead, but with every small victory, I felt my faith in our journey fortified. Just then, the sudden silence was shattered by the swift entrance of a nurse rushing in, her face drawn. "We need you all, now," she said, urgency bleeding through her words. "A situation has come up on the 7th floor. It's critical." The joyful moment shattered like glass, and my blood chilled. "What does that mean?" I pressed, instinctively. Clutching my daughters closer, she faltered, but her eyes were sharp. "There may be complications with another patient's treatment. It's escalating, and we might need extra hands." Time froze as a collective breath held by the room. My thoughts raced at the implications, the whirlwind of what-ifs flooding my mind anew, fear curling tightly around my chest. I began to feel a suffocating sense of despair creeping back in. "Dad, can we help?" Lila breathed as if feeling the energy shift. "And we're brave together, right?" Maria added, searching my eyes for reassurance and safety. "Yes, yes. Together," I whispered fervently. The dissonance between our previous moments of warmth and the stark cold of uncertainty struck me like a blow. Waylon stepped closer again, visibly distressed by the nurse's announcement. "This is what I feared, but in this chaos, we cannot lose sight of our mission. We can still hope, even when the ground shifts below us." But my chest was tight. I felt the shadows encroaching again, the landscape of fear shifting ominously. I wasn't ready for another battle, another worry to claw at our progress. "No one will think about what's important. We'll be lost in chaos again," I murmured, the words coated in newfound dread. "Your girls are strong, and they will carry that strength forward," Waylon insisted, his voice steady. He glanced at the nurse, determination brimming behind his mask of professionalism. "But we need to act. There's a slender thread of hope available here, too." As I looked down at my daughters in heightened distress, entranced by their uncertainty, I was struck by a realization: the storm swirling around me echoed the chaos within. But what if that chaos could lead us to a new understanding? What if we dared to step into the fray? "Let's go," I declared, the urgency pushing away the shadows momentarily. As we moved towards the door, my heart raced. Uncertainty loomed like a tidal wave, yet amidst it, I knew I had to protect what mattered most. Something had shifted irrevocably, and I could feel that it was only the beginning of a dark chapter, one that would test our resolve in unforeseen ways. As we stepped into the hallway, a shrill alarm blared through the hospital, its echoes reverberating with a sinister urgency, shaking the fragile hope we'd held onto tightly. My heart sank as I turned to see Waylon pause, his eyes widening a fraction, and in that moment, I feared that the chaos ahead would fracture the very foundation of our dream. "Get ready for anything," he whispered, and I could feel the tremors of change shift dangerously beneath our collective feet, icy tendrils ensnaring the fabric of our fragile unity. And the echoes of dread pressed in closer. The knowledge that we were standing on the precipice of something far beyond our reckoning hung ominously in the air. The moment we stepped into the hallway, the clamoring alarms intensified, drawing frantic nurses and doctors into a whirl of action. The sterile environment transformed into a chaotic battleground, the clinical white walls a backdrop for the racing hearts of terrified families, all of us caught in the lunging grip of uncertainty. "Stay close," I instructed my daughters, grasping their hands tightly as we maneuvered through the crowd. But even amidst the frenzy, an unexpected warmth flickered at the edge of my anxieties. a nurse momentarily breaking away from the chaos. She paused, her expression softening as she spotted Lila and Maria. "Aren't you two the brave girls I've heard about?" she asked, kneeling to their level. Her voice was soothing, as if she held a small piece of hope against the tidal wave of fear sweeping through the hospital. Lila nodded, her face blooming with a sudden dash of confidence. "We're going to help." The nurse's kind eyes glimmered with recognition, and she squeezed Lila's hand gently. "And that's exactly what we need. Just remember to follow whatever your dad says, okay?" Maria looked up at me, her bewildered expression melting into a smile as she nodded. The connection, brief as it was, transformed the anxious air around us, creating a microcosm of kindness amidst the turmoil. But urgency quickly swept back in as we resumed our hurried pace, the nurse rushing off into the fray, leaving a warm trail behind her. Pushing deeper into the heart of the hospital, a flicker of determination coiled within me, igniting the shadows that had threatened to darken our path. As I navigated through throngs of staff and fleeting glimpses of patients shrouded in worry, holding my daughter's hands felt like holding onto a lifeline. Then, a commotion arose beyond a group of doctors, a heart-wrenching cry piercing through the sterile atmosphere. My heart sank at the sound, each beat drawing me nearer to the edge of despair. "What is happening?" I whispered, fear drenching my words. Waylon turned to us, his expression a mixture of grave seriousness and determination. "Whatever it is, we need to stay focused. Our goal is to find the right people who can help. Your strength will carry us through this." I tried to catch glimpses of my daughters, their determination manufactured from innocence and unwavering belief. But insecurities attacked my mind like suffocating vines. What if this fear consumed them? What if they could feel the weight of impending loss? "Dad, look!" Lila exclaimed, pointing down the corridor where a cluster of brightly colored balloons bobbed above a young child in a hospital bed. The corridor swelled with cheer as a handful of nurses animatedly celebrated a small victory with the child. The sight tugged at something deep within me, stirring hope I'd nearly extinguished. "See? There's always room for joy," I murmured, wanting to believe that our storm could lend itself to the same kind of resilience. As we approached the cluster of colorful balloons, I heard laughter, a sound so rich and pure, it felt like an elixir for my soul in this moment of chaos. A nurse, vibrant and spirited, was handing out stickers, coaxing giggles from the child with a charming trick. Tension eased momentarily, and despite the alarm still shrieking, the warmth of that joy spread like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Maria's eyes brightened, her essence bursting forth in matches of laughter that ignited within Lila, too. "Can we get stickers, Dad?" she pleaded, the innocence in her eyes softening my heart against the looming shadows. "Yes, of course. If it makes you smile," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The nurse at the helm caught our eyes, a knowing smile grazing her lips. "These moments matter just as much as the treatments," she said softly, offering us kindness intertwined with resilience. "Hope can heal, you know." Just then, the door to the nurses' station swung open, and a jubilant cheer erupted from the team within. My heart raced. They were celebrating something significant, but before I could digest it, the moment abruptly shattered. A dull thud echoed, followed by a haunting silence that chilled the air around us. "Why did they stop?" Lila asked, her innocent curiosity momentarily erasing the ambient tension until concern flickered in her gaze. "I don't know, sweetheart," I whispered, gripping her hand more tightly. Waylon's demeanor shifted, his brow furrowing as he braced himself. "Something isn't right," he said, his voice now shadowed with anxiety. He glanced back toward the commotion, heart racing in unison with his thoughts as I felt the ground beneath us tremble, a premonition of something dire. The next moment felt both stretched and fleeting. Voices buzzed around us, muted yet urgent. I could feel my heart lurch as a stretcher rushed by, a patient's face concealed behind stark white sheets, and I froze, revolting emotions wrestling within me. Had we stepped into a world where hope wasn't enough? Or could we pave our way through this darkness? What if I dared to imagine, yet I felt paralyzed by the weight of uncertainty. My daughters hadn't noticed they were still beckoned by the remnants of joy clouding the atmosphere, unaware of the shifting foundations threatening us, and then, it hit me. Out of the chaos, perhaps a flicker of choice remained, a gnawing belief in the goodness surrounding us. Somewhere amidst this appalling reality, battles could still be fought, strength could still bloom, and those moments of light could stitch together the fraying edges of our journey. As I glanced at my daughters, their laughter slowly fading against the crescendo of alarm signals, something primal ignited within me. My heart screamed for action, a heartbeat pleading for courage to combat that surging dread. "Let us keep moving," I whispered, and as we took our steps forward, I sensed my resolve beginning to anchor us, pulling us out of chaos and back into determination. But the moment slipped further away from clarity as we rounded a corner, crash after crash echoing ominously, dragging us deeper into the storm. My breath quickened as I felt the shadows cast wider, looming over the fragile piece we so desperately tried to wield. "Dad?" Lila's voice trembled as the alarms blared louder, uncertainty coiling tighter around my resolve. "Just hold on," I urged, even as my mind raced, convinced that this dark chapter was pulling us into an abyss I could scarcely understand. And as we marched into the reflecting void of what awaited, my heart ached with the knowledge that the true depth of our battle loomed ever closer, and the weight of choice would lead us further into the depths of a tempest, the very fabric of hope unraveling with every uncertain step we took. The air grew thicker, pinched with tension, like we were characters in a cruel play where the narrative twisted without mercy. Each footfall echoed against the sterile tiles, punctuated by the alarms wailing like sirens in the night. The shadows of uncertainty wrapped tightly around us, turning every corner into a corridor of dread. "Dad?" Maria's voice caught in her throat, trembling as she looked up at me with wide, glistening eyes. It was an unspoken question: was hope even a possibility here, in this stifling maze? My heart ached at the innocence lying in her gaze, a plea for reassurance that felt almost futile amid rising chaos. "Just a little further, okay?" I said, drawing a breath, though every inhalation felt like a weight on my chest, pressing down steadily. "We'll find Mom soon." The corridor split into two paths, and I paused, listening carefully as my mind grasped at scraps of fleeting purpose in a landscape that felt increasingly surreal. Committed to the knowledge that there was still love tethered to reason, I chose the right, my daughters swinging gently between hope and despair, navigating the tumult with me. With every twist and turn, something familiar flickered just beyond my comprehension, a deeply personal battle threading its way through the hospital's pulse. It was more than just my own storm. It belonged to the countless families caught in a similar plight, grappling with their own heartaches and glimmers of hope. As we pressed on, I caught sight of a small waiting area filled with families poring over boards etched with the names of loved ones, tracing them like stars on a desperate map. A father cradled a child in his arms, whispering soft reassurances that melted into the whispers of despair coiling around us all. That moment of shared pain burned into my memory, a reminder that I wasn't alone. The juxtaposition of their struggle against our own sorrow pricked an old wound, one I had buried deep beneath layers of composure. I swallowed hard, wanting to scream, to cry out against the injustice of it all, yet all that came was a heavy silence, woven through with my daughter's laughter echoing faintly in the backdrop. Then, from the corner of my eye, I noticed a figure with a chart, bustling down the hallway, a caregiver, no doubt driven by a commitment to more than just a job. She wore bright scrubs adorned with vibrant patterns, like an unexpected blossom emerging from the cracks in the pavement. With every hurried step, her energy seemed to scatter sunlight, igniting a flicker of hope amid the dark clouds surrounding us. In the midst of chaos, she paused endlessly, attending to a young girl sitting alone, tears brimming on her cheeks. I held my breath as I watched her kneel, speaking gently, her words alighting the atmosphere with a compassionate glow. For just a moment, the sounds of beeping machines and muted cries faded into something quieter and more beautiful, the sound of kindness in action. "Can I help you with that?" I heard her say, her tone soft yet confident. The little girl peered up, uncertainty threatening to dull her light. But then the caregiver produced from her pocket a small plush toy, its colors vibrant and inviting. The child's lips quirked into a smile, as if a gentle spark had been kindled within her. Watching that transformation, a wave of longing washed over me. I swayed between hope for my daughters and the despair I had tried to mask with each passing moment. Could we be cradled by such warmth, such kindness, despite the darkness lurking just beyond our vision? "Look, girls," I said, gesturing toward the scene. "Sometimes all it takes is one person to make a difference." Lila's eyes lit up at the caregiver's empathetic embrace, her curiosity a flickering candle against the dimming light. "Can we help too, Dad?" she asked, her voice earnest as she tugged on my sleeve. "Of course," I replied, though a knot tightened in my stomach at the thought of stepping outside the protective bubble of urgency we'd been encased within. But in that moment, I sensed my daughter's courage and foresight guiding me toward unfamiliar territory, the possibility that our kindness could illuminate somebody else's darkest hour, even when ours felt so heavy that we moved closer, and the caregiver's smile widened as she noticed our approach. "Would you like to join us?" she asked, her voice ringing clear and warm. I felt my heart tremble between gratitude and fear at the unexpected invitation. It always helps to lend a hand. My daughters nodded, nerves mingling with anticipation, and as we stepped within reach of the struggling girl, I felt a paradox: our little act of kindness could coalesce with the fragility of our own situation. Offering support in a world spiraling downward suddenly felt like both a risk and an anchor to something greater, but just as we were about to kneel down beside her, the hospital alarms blared again, slicing through the fledgling warm connection. An urgent announcement rang through the corridors: "Code Blue in room 402. Immediate team response required." A chill swept through me, stinging at the unity we had almost woven. "We need to go," I said, gripping my daughter's hands tighter as we turned to leave. A familiar dread rolled in the pit of my stomach as I realized the severe reality of what awaited us. I caught the caregiver's gaze as I passed, her expression still unwavering, unflinching in the face of turmoil. "You're doing great," she called after us, her voice steady as a beacon reflecting the unseen battles we were each fighting. But as the weight of uncertainty pressed down on us again, it twisted my resolve. An unsettling thought crystallized in my mind. I had barely been able to reconcile my own fears when there were endless unfamiliar faces waiting on the other side of this very whirlwind, and then, as we hurried away from that fragile moment of compassion, I glimpsed a spark of something on the floor, a small, plush toy, forgotten and alone, a reminder of the innocence that both built us up and tore us apart. "Wait!" I cried out, catching my breath as I bent to pick up the toy. I turned back to the young girl, still peering into the vibrant chaos. "You might need this," I offered, my hands trembling as I held it out, but as her eyes reflected uncertainty mixed with hope, a heavy weight in my chest rose louder than all the alarms thrumming through the walls. What if that small moment of hope would be swallowed once more into the storm we were facing? "Dad, we can't," Maria whispered, her little voice echoing my apprehensions. Just then a nurse rushed past us with urgent intensity, eyes wide, and the chill coursed back through me, burdened by the knowledge that every moment put us closer to decisions I wasn't ready to confront, and as we stepped back into the chaos, I was left grappling with the question that lingered unspoken between us: could I face the terrifying unknown alongside my daughters, nudging the flickering flames of hope even as darkness loomed ever closer? The evening pressed in, thick and heavy like a damp fog coiling around us. The sterile brightness of the hospital seemed to pulse with a life of its own, each flickering fluorescent light a stark reminder of the anguish lurking just beyond the reach of its brightness. I tightened my grip on Maria and Lila's hands as we moved past rooms muffled by soft sounds of sorrow, the cries of distraught families wrapped in their own struggles. "I don't like this place, Dad," Maria whispered, her voice small and fragile, her eyes darting to the shadows that danced just beyond our reach. I stopped briefly, kneeling to meet her gaze. "Neither do I, sweetheart," I confessed, wishing I could shield her from every sharp edge of reality that threatened to carve her innocence away. "But we're strong together. We'll find Mom and go home." Their trust in me was a fragile thread, but in that moment, I felt my heart swell with determination. I had to navigate this labyrinth of despair and find a way through for them. Yet the deeper I ventured, the more entangled I felt in the web of fear and uncertainty threading through the halls. Turning a corner, I heard snippets of whispered conversations heavy with weight, the hope of one family contrasted against the anguish of another. My gaze landed on a group gathered near a nurse's station, expressions etched in concern as they clutched each other tightly, sharing whatever scant comfort they could borrow. I couldn't help but wonder if they carried their own plush memories, tokens of love abandoned to the chaos. "Look, Dad, more people," Lila said, her eyes widening with curiosity. I knew she was desperate for connection, eager to understand this shared pain, perhaps even to find friendship in sorrow. A hunger for hearth and home pulsed through her, as palpable as my own beat of anxiety. But just then, a sudden clamor erupted from a nearby room. The sounds of chairs scraping, a voice shouting for help, urgency enveloped the space, and instinctively, I drew my daughters closer to my side. The chaos that accompanied the emergency siren sparked fresh fear in my heart, and I couldn't shake the gut-wrenching reminder of how precarious life could be. "Why are they yelling?" Maria asked, eyes wide, brimming with innocent dread that I struggled with my response as I turned to my daughters. "They're trying to help someone, just like we want to help Mom," I said, hoping to absorb a flicker of reassurance into my voice, wishing I could transmit the strength I struggled to possess myself. The hallway felt narrower all of a sudden, suffocating as we pressed onward. I felt caught in the undertow of shared pain, adrenaline coursing through me as if drawn by an invisible force weaving its way toward the heart of the hospital. Just then, like a thread of warmth stitching together the cold fabric of our reality, a voice broke through my tumultuous thoughts. "Hello, there." A cheerful nurse appeared, her presence a contrast against the gray backdrop of despair. "Are you lost?" she asked, a genuine smile spreading across her face as her eyes sparkled with kindness. "Not lost, just searching," I replied, hesitant yet drawn in by her energy. I felt hopeful for my daughters, who were captivated by the lightness she carried, a quiet strength glowing like a lantern amidst the shadows. "All right, let us find what you're looking for. How about I share a little adventure with you?" she offered. Her calming demeanor flickered something new within me, an unexpected surge of courage that I didn't know I had. "Take a deep breath, and follow me." I exchanged glances with Maria and Lila, watching their eyes momentarily lift from the heavy burden that lay anchored in their hearts. Perhaps this was exactly what we needed, I reasoned, a small diversion from the relentless uncertainty. The nurse beckoned us forward, her presence a soft refuge against the tempest roaring within. As we followed her deeper into the heart of the hospital, I noticed small details igniting my fading hope. The walls, once sterile and unwelcoming, were painted with murals of laughter, family and togetherness. Vibrant colors splashed across the drab landscape. Each depiction seemed to emerge from the depths of despair, telling stories of resilience born from struggle. "We use these to remind everyone that they're not alone," the nurse explained, her voice warm and knowing. "Everyone here is battling their own fight. Together, we lift each other up." I felt my heart constrict, a pit forming in my stomach as the weight of her words wrapped tightly around me. Each vibrant mural reflected my family's journey, a simultaneous cradle and storm, both a symbol of hope yet a reminder of our pain. Just as we reached a colorful waiting room filled with small distractions for children, a treasure chest of games and art, I noticed a solemn figure sitting off to the side, glancing toward us with eyes that shimmered with tears. An older woman, her frail hands resting atop an empty lap, was staring vacantly, as though lost in her own tempest. "Can we?" Maria began softly, straining against an invisible tether threatening to hold her back. That I hesitated, wrestling with my own impulse to move forward versus the overwhelming urge to protect my girls from heartache. But as Lila stepped forward, determination written all over her face, I felt a flicker of hope. "Let us just ask if she needs someone to talk to," I said, the words erupting without conscious thought. They were a lifeline thrown into the ocean of uncertainty. The three of us approached, taking each step with shared hesitance. "Hi," Maria said, her voice a gentle lilt amidst the silence. "Are you okay?" The woman turned toward my daughters, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of surprise and sorrow. "Oh, dear, thank you for asking," she replied, her voice trembling, though a seed of warmth began to settle in her expression. "I'm just waiting." I felt the weight of her sentiment resonate within me, understanding all too well the emotional weight of that simple word. It connected us, three strangers weaving a temporary bond through shared loss. That I settled beside her, hoping to offer what little solace I could, as Maria and Lila squeezed closer. Between us, a fragile space opened, the promise that even when the world felt relentlessly cruel, little moments of connection could birth unexpected hope. As we shared quiet words, gentle smiles, and moments of understanding, I noticed one of the murals caught the corners of my eye, a vibrant depiction of a family standing together through rain and sun. For the first time since this began, I felt a crack in my armor. Hope shimmered at the edges of my heart, daring to unfurl within the shadows as I envisioned our own future together. But just as the moment began to breathe life into my spirit, the silence was shattered yet again by another announcement crackling over the intercom. "Attention all staff, code red in room 506. Immediate assistance required." A sudden fear gripped me, tugging at the threads of courage I had so carefully woven. I glanced at the ladies in my life, my daughters, each filled with youthful curiosity and uncertainty, and could feel the anchor of dread tightening, changing the very atmosphere that had just lifted our spirits. That I turned back to the older woman, the camaraderie and warmth we had begun to forge hanging delicately in the air between us, full of contrast to the harsh reality that loomed ahead. "Take care, dear ones," she said, her words drifting softly as the shadows crept back in. And as I stood, felt the weight of everything shift with the urgency of the call filling the air, a thought gripped me, chilling to the bone. What if this was the very moment everything shifted again? Just as we found an unexpected ember of light, would it be extinguished by the looming unknown? Faced with the reality of the situation, I could only clutch my daughter's hands tighter, the warmth of their little fingers entwined in my grasp, a fragile reminder that we were still fighting together. The storm was far from over, and I couldn't shake the sense that in the flurry of events, something far graver awaited us beyond the horizon. The chaos of the hospital swirled around me, enfolding us once again with its relentless grip. In that moment, the echoes of laughter slowly faded, absorbed by the urgency that I could feel reverberating through each tile beneath my feet. "We need to keep moving," I urged, my voice steadier than I felt, but the shadows of doubt loomed just as heavily as before. My daughters, perceptive and intuitive as they were, flanked me, sensing an undercurrent of tension that hung in the air like a storm cloud threatening to burst. We moved down the corridor, and I could see nurses rushing past, sparking moments of fright that seemed to make my heart race faster. Each swing of the overhead lights cast irregular patterns on the floor, illuminating the fear etched on the faces we passed. My stomach clenched tighter, knowing each moment spent wandering this labyrinth could build barriers to the love I fought so hard to keep alive. As we approached the destination of the urgent call, a door marked with stark, clinical letters, the cacophony of chaos behind it permeated the air, drowning out reason with dread. A hollow ache settled into my bones as we stepped closer, my heart thumping like a war drum. We were so close to unraveling whatever nightmare lay behind that door, yet fear threatened to paralyze me all over again. "Dad?" Lila's voice sliced through the tension, a tremor laced with worry, pulling me back from the brink of my spiraling thoughts. My gaze bent low, meeting hers, the wide eyes framed in innocence radiated a deep courage even amidst fear. "What's happening?" I crouched to her level, drinking in the beauty and wonder so alive in her fragile form, clinging to that glimmer. "It's just people trying to help, sweetheart," I whispered, swallowing hard against the lump in my throat. "But we'll find Mom. We'll get through this." Yet, even as the words slipped from my tongue, I doubted their veracity. I was exhausted from the battle, where hope had begun to crack under the weight of fear. I caught Maria's hand tighter in mine, refusing to let go. It anchored me through the darkness, threatening to spill into my heart as I stood before the door that could either lead us to our reunion or plunge us deeper into despair. The heavy wooden barrier loomed over us, a sentinel guarding secrets I wasn't prepared to face. The names of strangers or family members were brushed against the wall, with messages of courage or sympathy scrawled anxiously in pastels and black. My breath quickened, each inhale thickening with the sharp scent of antiseptic. I hesitated, my heart clanging against my ribcage like a captive animal begging for freedom. Go, a voice beckoned, familiar yet distant, filled with urgency and determination. It broke through my fog. Rebecca, her eyes shining like beacons, appeared at my side. You need to go in. Your girls are ready, and we can't let this moment of hope slip away. I felt an electric current fizzing through the air, igniting a moment of reckoning. It wasn't just about my daughters anymore, it was about facing the tempest of life itself. What kind of father would I be if I turned away, if I allowed fear to be the guiding force? We can't lose this, I murmured, clenching my fists as if that alone would hold everything together. With a sharp breath, I turned the handle and pushed the door open, and the flood of light spilled into the chaos waiting beyond. The surprised faces of medical staff blinked at us, but it didn't take long for their focus to shift back to the task at hand. The hurried urgency blossomed around me, the sound of machines beeping rapidly indicating the strenuous fight raging within, and then, through the flickering shadows, my gaze landed on a sight that struck me with a force I couldn't quite comprehend. There, near the center of the tumult, lay a bed surrounded by torn faces, each marred with fear, desperation, and the bittersweet scent of impending loss. A figure draped in sterile white fought valiantly, a woman whose face I recognized and whose name gripped my heart like a vice that twisted painfully. My breath caught in my throat as I realized it was my wife, her body frail, yet she held a glimmer of strength in her eyes that seemed to shine against all odds. "Mom!" Maria squeaked, her voice flailing as she darted out of my grasp, weaving through the chaos as instinct pulled her closer. "No!" I called for her, fear coursing through my veins, but it was already too late. Maria rushed to her mother's side, and I had no choice but to follow, swept away by the wave of emotional force that reached out across the distance, beckoning me to the heart of our battle. As I approached, the world dulled. I could only see my wife, straining but determined, and the small, thin hand that desperately reached toward her. In that fleeting moment of collision, their spirits met my daughters, enveloping her in an embrace that seemed to bend the barriers between despair and hope. The room pulsed with life, it reverberated with the sounds of chaos woven into a tapestry of emotion and heartbeats. I stood frozen, my heart swelling, yet feeling as if all the air had been knocked from my lungs. "You're here," she breathed, and even through the exhaustion, her voice glowed like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. I stepped closer, my daughters clinging to her like tiny anchors against the storm. The oxygen thinned, but I pushed forward, drowning in the memories of everything we had fought to reclaim. "We are together," I said, my voice steady with firmness I didn't quite feel. "No matter what happens, we're not losing each other." The doctors busied themselves, monitoring the fragile dance of heart rates and breaths, but the colors in those moments blurred. All that mattered was the fire kindling within our small circle, the fierce love that wove between us, a bond invincible against whatever darkness may lay ahead. As the chaos swirled, and hope flickered on the edges of uncertainty, my wife pulled me close, her fingers brushing against mine as our worlds collided in a rush of vulnerability and determination. "We'll face this together," I promised, my heart swelling with newfound strength. "We'll face this storm as a family." In a miraculous twist, her grip tightened against the whispers of doubt saturating the air, and something shifted in the balance. Our spirits rose against the weight of despair, laughter interlaced fleeting glances of hope within an atmosphere rife with pain. No sooner did I settle into this promising tide than an announcement drifted in, a voice rattling through the room: "New treatment protocols are available. There is hope." Those words echoed around us like a lifeline thrown in the ocean of uncertainty, pulled tightly by the sheer will of love that held us together. The realization coursed through every fragment of my being: the journey was far from over, but it didn't matter. My family was here. We had navigated the storms, faced down shadows threatening to sweep us away, and yet, here we stood, stronger than ever. In that moment of clarity amid chaos, I caught my daughter's eyes, wide with undeterred hope, and I knew we were just beginning. As I looked at my wife, in her battle-worn glory, I whispered, "Together, we'll write our story. Every setback, every triumph, together." I held on to that moment like a lifeline, and the truth bloomed strong in my heart. No matter how daunting the fight ahead might be, weave our resolve with kindness, courage, and love that could never dim. Our family would soar beyond the horizon of despair, unfurling against the bright canvas of hope and possibility. And for all the darkness we face, we would emerge into the light. Together, I said, the word igniting a thread woven through the fabric of our hearts. Together.